Thanks for joining us. This is The Economy. Right now in the office with me is the CEO of Satu Creative, a good friend of mine, Azuar Zainuddin. Azuar, how are you?
I'm good.
Let's talk a little bit more about Satu Creative. Personally, Yayasan Praju has worked closely with Satu Creative, and there's so many organizations that have worked with Satu Creative. But I need to talk about your recent win with Khazanah. And perhaps you can segue into what you guys do for a living.
All right, thanks for having me, Ibrahim. So with the Yayasan Hasanah, we are working on the distributing the Hasanah Social Enterprise Fund. So with Satu Creative, working together, of course Hasanah with the vision and objective to support and nurture social enterprise. Satu Creative comes into the picture because, of course, first and foremost, our mission aligns. We believe in the power of business to entrepreneurship to support the social enterprise ecosystem. I think there's a lot of issues in Malaysia, from inequality to the environmental degradation. So it's very important that a platform such as the Creative Sprint Hasanah Social Enterprise Fund exists, so that we are able to, I guess, unearth, support businesses at the early stage when they are looking at market fit, when they're looking at the capacity, the network, the funding.
Yeah.
So this is where Satu Creative comes in and support the program.
I think you're being more humble than you need to be. Satu Creative was the only recipient this year for running this program, and that shows the testament of the work that you guys do and the confidence that Khazanah has with your program and how you roll out. Maybe you can also share with us a little bit more about the history of Satu Creative in rolling out programs with social enterprise, especially with the Shell collaboration as well.
Yeah, I think Satu Creative have been, lucky. We've been working with a lot of good partners. I think we mentioned Yayasan Hasanah, we mentioned Shell, but of course many government agencies as well. And an organization as Yayasan Panaraju, where we come into the space where we call ourselves Entrepreneur Support Organization, where we support MSMEs, but there is a particular interest, passion from myself and my team, and the partners, of course, to support social enterprise, because we believe that they are in a very interesting intersection where they are profit focused, meaning that they are looking to be sustainable, but at the same time a mission focus, mission lock to address the issues. Yeah.
I wish I can mention the names, but I'm not too sure if they are comfortable if I reveal them. But Malaysian GLC and GLIC CEOs are also grappling with this story of how to build sustainable social enterprise programs. While they believe that the social element is critical to grow communities, that commercialization element is something that has always been lacking when Malaysian enterprises roll out SE programs. Do you emphasize that commercial aspect, or at least the economic viability aspect of sustainability in rolling out SE programs?
Definitely. We learned a lot from the various programs that we've been running over the many years. So looking at businesses that are successful, I think we have to take a step back. We need to look at the funnel, creating the funnel, developing the funnel, especially in the early stage where these businesses are at a very precarious, still at a stage where they haven't found the market, the customer, that they're able to generate the revenue and find the business model or market fit. So this is where organizations like Satu Creative and many others as well are working together towards supporting to create the funnel so that we can unearth the gems. Because the success of businesses is not determined by programs or by funding. It's determined by the ability for them to meet specific needs, to design sustainable business model. And this is where I think where we come in, and many others as well, and we're learning. Social enterprise, of course, have been in Malaysia for some time, but it hasn't really taken off. So, of course, we can point fingers, but I think more important is, I think there are many very capable and visionary founders out there, but the challenge is how do we tackle the market? Because at the end of the day, why we want to support social enterprise as opposed to, I guess, the traditional businesses only, is because social enterprise actually fits in the nice space where the government can't do everything. We have to accept that. I think there is a dependency where we're always expecting and blaming the government, but in fact, the other option is to depend on the NGOs. They are always depending on funding. So where social enterprise comes in is they fit in a space where they can generate their own revenue, sustain their own business model, scale, but at the same time address the issues that are so important. There's so many. I think it's like that saying, right? You are the change that you've been waiting for. I think a lot of that come into play for intermediaries or support organization, like Yayasan Penaju and Satu Creative, to support that, to nurture that.
Another saying that I've been hearing rather often is when you have hope, that means you're still relying on other people to execute. It's best to execute yourself, and you're the change that you're waiting for, right? Let's set the record, or let's set the setting, the sense of how social enterprise, especially how it's done in Malaysia, is being seen and done. And how do we set the stage up for, say, ASEAN and global dominance for accessing a larger market, the way you put it just now? Market accessibility is important, but at the same time, sometimes many of the social enterprises we see are done in small communities where commercial viability might not necessarily be there, so therefore they need to tap into other markets. So how do you see social enterprise done in Malaysia can actually set the record or set the plane nice for ASEAN market to be accepted, or even global stage to be to have access to?
Yeah, I think to that question, a lot of it is a mindset conditioning. I mean, like for ourselves at Satu Creative, we've been knocking on doors, we've been doing some work in the region. I think they need, I mean, for Malaysia, we're relatively medium-sized or even small market. So from the business perspective, on the business acumen level, I think we should condition ourselves as, and looking at ASEAN as a single market. I think there are challenges, there are complications, they require certain navigation, but that idea, that vision could be there. I think good solutions are needed everywhere, and not just in ASEAN, even across. We look at the global south. So this is where, before we get there, I think Malaysia, of course, whether it's Klang Valley or in other parts of Malaysia, it's a good place for us to test and nurture. But at the same time, the vision needs to be there, that we are creating a product that hopefully is repeatable and scalable, and ASEAN would be the natural next step for Malaysian businesses.
You're rolling up programs in other markets in ASEAN as well, for instance in Indonesia. How do you compare Malaysia versus Indonesia and other markets as well? Do you see some similarities, some vibrancy possibilities? Where do we stack up against our neighbors?
I think it's relatively similar. The needs are similar. I think across ASEAN we see inequality. Across ASEAN we see values in supporting those areas where perhaps they are too niche or narrow for the government to come in, but valuable enough for businesses to look into. So one way we're looking at when looking at the ASEAN market is partnership. In business, you have to build that trust, being able to, I guess, look for win-win solutions. So this is where we're looking at in the region. We're fortunate, for instance, in Indonesia, in Brunei, there are partners that shares our values, shares our mission, shares our goals, and at the same time are also facing similar challenges. So naturally, there is, I guess, a landing position.
Yeah, a confluence of events where we're looking at the same problem together.
Yes, definitely. And I think there's opportunity. But of course, in business, you have to have trust, but at the same time, of course, have good governance and legal matters to ensure that collaboration, partnership works well.
I think for a country like Brunei, everything is stable and sorted, but it's such a tiny market. And then with Indonesia, for instance, it's so vast, the opportunities are aplenty. I was playing around with my app. There's, if you put if you interlace Indonesia with America, it's actually wider than America, from Aceh all the way to Papua. And to speak of Indonesia as a single market is ridiculous, because Definitely. It's never going to be a single market. Having said that, you look at all these countries, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, and other ASEAN markets, they don't inculcate social entrepreneurship in their GDP growth strategies. So how do you see that as, is that the biggest stumbling block for us trying to grow social enterprise in ASEAN, in the global stage?
Yes, I think it's important for policymakers, I think ecosystem partners to look at I think, beyond just GDP. Of course, GDP ultimately is a lagging indicator. It's nice when the scale is there to, I guess, be sizable enough to be measured from a GDP standpoint. But looking at the social enterprises that we've seen in the region, they are tackling real issues. I mean, for instance, the farmers all the way in Baram, where they do not have market access, they don't have the, I guess, capacity to produce good products. This is where social enterprise can create the interlinkages, the supply chain, the value chain. And I think looking at these individual stories is just as important as looking at the macro picture. I think anyone should not be left behind just because of circumstances where they are, born in a rural area, or they are born to a, I guess, less privileged family. So when looking at social enterprise, I will implore, I guess, JLC, the government, or any corporate partners to look at it not just at the macro level. Yes, we want to scale, but we also need to look at the depth and breadth. I think this is a key term when looking at the impact that social enterprise generates and creates.
I think also, when you talk about over-reliance on government aid, for instance, it's mostly on government grants and government money. And if you look at JLC, for instance, the same thing, CSR money or corporate responsibility cash coming into this space to perhaps jumpstart. What I want to focus a little bit more in our next set of conversation is on policy, because no matter what, the government sets the policy. And if we take our eyes away from, say, the ASEAN stage and focus domestically in Malaysia, we're looking at some flavors already being mentioned in national-wide policies like the 13th Malaysia Plan that has been approved by the Parliament recently. We're looking at the national enterprises or national entrepreneurship policy as well. Do you think that the policy that is being framed in these national framework is enough? Or how do you think it can be further optimized when you mentioned depth and breadth of social enterprises? Where do you see the gaps are, and how do we close it?
Policy has its place, and definitely it has an impact on, I guess, the ecosystem where the social enterprise exists. But looking at, I guess, a past history, I think we had several plans and blueprints on social enterprise. While they are, I guess, good in intention and nature, whether if we were to measure whether social enterprise is mainstream, whether it's scalable, I think there are still some space, there's still some gap there. So, but more importantly, I think it is about nurturing quality businesses, because ultimately the mission is there. Usually people has a purpose and they are guided as a true north for them to achieve that mission. But where we see businesses fail is on, again, sometimes there are over dependency on grant. But
that basically means it's not economically sustainable.
Yeah, I think partly because it's so widely available, but it's available without some control and some level of governance. I think where we're looking at early stage businesses, for example, we want to nurture them. There have to be some level of graduation, where they go to the next step and perhaps less dependent, or in fact, if they're looking for grants, it's grant for what? For what purpose, and how do we ensure that these grants are being used for them to, for instance, scale to the next level. So where we see at the moment, the grants are available. I mean, you brought it up, a very good question earlier, where comparing between Indonesia and Malaysia, the feedback that I get a lot from our neighbors is there's not as much support as we do get in Malaysia. We're quite privileged in that sense. However, I think what needs to happen next is, I think, conditioning, setting the what is it that we expect to achieve in terms of outcome from this investment through grants, through all sort of financing.
Let's talk a little bit more when it comes to the businesses that are able to scale up. I have no idea how many enterprises that you have helped, shaped, the entrepreneurs that you've worked with, and guiding them, finding their true north, and helping them persevere and push through the sludge and getting to the objective that they need to be. From your experience, what makes a business model economically viable and acceptable by the market to a point where they can, scale up and graduate, as you put it?
I think first, of course, looking at the business model and the market fit. I think we've seen businesses, for example, a popular example would be Irene Mosito from the Mowangi in Sabah. They're still relatively small, but considering they are in Ranau, they are not in the major cities, the fact that they're able to grow their business while not, while at a pace that is manageable, but still something that we can look at as a beacon, you see. So from this one business, you're looking at supply chain that goes all the way to the 5-star hotels. You're looking at, I think, employment generated and supply chain being supported in her village. So this is where, coming back to the scale, not every business is meant to scale. I think there are value where they bring to the community, and that's fine. I think we are so engrossed in this national scale. There are many types of businesses. There are some businesses, perhaps they are ready to expand into other regions, so be it. Right? But there are businesses that, nevertheless, their scale and businesses, they are having deep value and impact to the communities.
So I think what you're trying to get at is sometimes, as long as it's economically sustainable, scale need not be the topic of the day, I suppose.
Yes, working closely with the businesses across Malaysia, in East Malaysia, East Coast Malaysia, of course in Klang Valley where a lot of the social enterprises are, I think we have already come to term that, and I think the government also can consider this, that, and I'm sure they are already looking into this, where not all businesses are one size fits all. Not all programs supports in a blanket way, right? Yeah, it cannot be. Yeah. So looking at this, we welcome, we need to be inclusive. Again, if you look at data research that's being done by some organizations, you see that a lot of the social enterprises, it's very much a Klang Valley area, like, some of them are like at co-working spaces, nice coffee shops and all that, but the value is also in the kampong, in the villages, whether in Ranau, for example, for Irene earlier, whether it's in Barrio in Sarawak. So this is just as equally important, and we should not be too, I guess, for one single track in terms of where we see the value that social enterprise can bring to Malaysia and beyond.
Innovation and technology and creative, these are the kinds of efforts that not just the government, but of course the private sector as well is trying to deepen and help social enterprises achieve their economic viability and sustainability. Do you think it can be further integrated with these type of elements, or do you think that sometimes we have to admit defeat and move on? Maybe for social enterprises, innovation technology shouldn't be the day. It should be on values and culture and local influence.
I think social enterprise on its own is innovation. It is an innovative business model. So innovation is not, I guess, one or the other between social enterprise and technology. So we believe that technology is a game changer. The fact that they're able to promote and market their product, the fact that they are able to improve the way they deliver their services and solutions. So definitely we do not see this as separate, and in fact we encourage businesses to tap on all this technology to be able to scale their business, to create more value. And yes, I think it's not, the idea of social enterprise as this nice, in the village, rural, small, ultimately it is a business. If technology is impacting across businesses in any sector, I think it's the same with social enterprise. We want to we should be looking at how we can adopt and bring in better technology, better process to ensure that our solution is more feasible, desirable, and ultimately viable and sustainable.
Let's talk about social enterprise as an idea and as a product. Do you think that there are some legs into Malaysia exporting social enterprise and the best practices of carrying out social enterprise programs to the ASEAN market, i.e. selling this or exporting this as an idea the way we do with the green economy or with halal, for instance? Do you think that there's some legs to this so that other countries can adopt the best practices that we do right now?
Interesting question there, Ibrahim. Looking at social enterprise, there is this universal value. I think it's about kindness, it's about supporting each other, assisting each other. I think when we look at Malaysia, among the many strengths of our nation, is that, for example, is Islamic finance, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I think looking at that, there are a lot of value, universal value, that people can look into at Malaysia, you know, where we have geopolitical tension and all that. We are this beacon of stability, unity, and I think that ties in very well with the national narrative. So just on that angle, there is value that we can share with social enterprise. I think, for instance, last year's budget is coming soon. We see several social enterprises already being recognized by the government. We hear about Epic Homes, for example, working with the Orang Asli, building wonderful homes for them. They had some funding from the last budget. We look at, for instance, Pepper Labs with the Dapo Digital initiative. So more and more, we are seeing that the efforts that are being done by all the partners, government agencies, private sector, intermediaries like ourselves and others, are bearing fruits. And say in 10 years or 5 years, what we envision is, of course, social enterprise not being somewhat of a niche area, but rather the value that many businesses shared and shares. I think that's the vision, I guess.
So you alluded to the next point that I want to talk about, which is budget. It's going to be presented in the Dewan Rakyat by the Prime Minister on the 10th of October, roughly about 1 month to go from now. On top of that, this will be the first budget within the 13th Malaysia Plan for the next 5 years. So what would be your top 3 priorities or wish lists that you would want to see in both RMK 13 as well as in budget 2026 that is going to be presented? Do you want to see structural or policy level initiatives, or do you want to see more of those announcements like Pepper Labs and the Dapo Digital kind of thing being mentioned and earmarked, I suppose, for the budget for social enterprises to grow even further?
I look at it as both ways. I think it helps with mandates sometimes, right? To make things move fast, mandate does help. So in terms of mandate, of course, seeing a lot of JLCs, JLICs looking at supporting, they're already supporting, but enhancing and expanding it further in terms of the social procurement. I think social enterprises are producing solutions, the local ones, that I think of real value, and by helping them through revenue, not just grants. Grants help them to start, but revenue is the one that keeps the lights on. So we would like to see more social enterprise procurement initiative being rolled out for the budget as well as RMK 13. Looking at this, getting more incentive for social enterprise to, I guess, flourish from other parts of Malaysia, supporting more local solutions, whether it's in Kelantan, Terengganu, Sabah and Sarawak. So that's something that I would love to see. And of course, continuing with all the good things that are already being done, whether it is providing grants. I think shout out to many yayasan foundations from many JLCs and JLICs that are, I guess, really, really valuable to the ecosystem in terms of nurturing them, especially at the early stage, looking at expanding programs to ensure that people are aware that you can go and do business, but at the same time create value by employing a segment of society that maybe are a bit, I guess, do not have access, looking at addressing issues at local levels, because at local levels are where I believe, like, people knows best. I think you, rather than top-down, centralize everything from Putrajaya, I think it's about trusting our people as well. Malaysia, you know, we have many talented and capable.
What about making social enterprise a little bit more attractive to mainstream investors and corporate leaders and impact investors as well? How do you see that bridge being crossed in trying to attract mainstream money coming into this space?
Yeah. On that front, I think, to be fair, looking at the ecosystem currently, we need to develop more. We need to generate more quantity before we can unearth the quality. Otherwise, there are perhaps could be attention at the early stage, but on the long run, they may not be the funnel to sustain investment.
The funnel that you spoke of maybe 20 minutes ago.
Yes, looking at this, this is where I think investment, yes, there should be incentive for angel investing or impact investing, for instance, for social enterprise. I think that's another thing that the government can look at in RMK 13, looking at the medium-term period. But looking at that, it is a chicken and egg thing. Everything has to go in tandem. it takes a village, it takes an ecosystem, and this is what we want to see more, Ibrahim.
What would success look like to you for social entrepreneurship in Malaysia in the next 5 years? How do you define social entrepreneurship being achieving its objectives in the long run?
In the long run, I look back at why social enterprise need to exist. I think anywhere in the world, we have to be realistic that government are stretched. So looking at social enterprise as a viable party to the discussion in order to meaningfully create impact. So I think that's what success would look like to me. Looking at issues where the government, social enterprises, corporate bodies, academia, all the ecosystem working together in a beautifully coordinated way and creating value and addressing the issues that are so important.
Final question to you is, what are you going to do for the rest of the year? What's on your radar right now, at least towards the fourth quarter?
On the radar right now, of course, in October, we'll be having the Hasanah Social Enterprise Fund program, both in Penang and Klang Valley. Of course, Yayasan Hasanah works with many other partners, great partners, amazing partners across Malaysia for that. So that's one part. I think for me, what I'm doing now, a lot of building ecosystem. Next week, we'll be traveling to Hong Kong. There's this big Asia Value Philanthropy Network program happening in Hong Kong. There are programs where we'll be running small workshops in Mexico, of all places, sometime in October. But of course, while we travel and learn...
Why Mexico?
It happened to be where the conference is. Last year was in Bangkok.
I see they move around.
So we move around, yeah. Other than that, it's planning for next year and hopefully being able to roll out more programs, establishing more partnerships so that we can continue to support this very important strategic sector that can definitely create value economically, but also just as important, if not more importantly, socially and environmentally.
Thank you very much. That was Azuar Zainuddin, the CEO of Satu Creative. If you want to learn more about their work, just head on to their socials at Satu Creative, wherever you can find them. Also, there's a lot of these conversations that's going to be moving ahead when it comes to the budget, RMK13 and similar. So do check out Niaga AWANI on all our socials as well. Until then, thanks very much for watching and catch you in the next one.